All right, welcome back to part 10 of Chord Chemistry. It's the late, great Ted Greene's very famous book, and we're walking through this page by page, chord by chord, and word by word together. And today we're talking about, once again, part 10 of the video series, which is section 9 of the book, page 55, covering ear training. If you don't yet have the book and you would like to get your own copy of it, I don't blame you. You can get it right here in the link in the card above, or the link in the description below. You can do that now. One thing that is very important is learning to recognize the sounds of different kinds of chords and chord progressions. There are some good reasons for this. If you learn to hear different kinds of chords, you will be able to figure out songs by ear. You will find, number two, the improvement of your musical ear in one area will overlap into other areas. For instance, if you start to recognize the sound of nice chords when you hear them, you will also start being able to hear nice melodies or solo lines too. 3, you will actually learn to anticipate the place where certain chord progressions are going and which chords will be making the trip. One first step in ear training is to tell the difference between simple major and minor triads, which we'll do in a moment. Practice them a few minutes each day, playing many inversions of major and minor chords if you cannot already hear the difference between the two. In a short amount of time, you will be able to hear the difference. Now let's take a look now. And I'm just going to start with a few here, just a basic root position C major triad. So C, E, G, right? Very good. And then going right up the string set. So we're looking for C, E, G. Then I'm moving from C to E, and then E up to G, and then G up to C again. That's how we're going to get across the guitar neck. Also train our ears at the same time. I'm training my ears to hear the root in the bass, the 3 in the middle, and the 5, not the major 7, but the 5 on the top. And then the 3 in the bass, 5 in the middle, and root on the top. And then the 5 in the bass, the root in the middle, and the 3 on the top. And then the root 3, 5 again. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to start by playing the notes arpeggiated and then together. And I wanted to be sure. My guitar is in tune before we start this kind of ear training on guitar, right? Gotta be sure that we're in tune. Super important. Let's do a few more major chords here. So we'll start right here with the 3 in the bass, the open G, and then the root, and then we'll move up to 5, the 5th in the bass, the root, and the 3. And then the root 3, 5, and then the 3, the 5, and the 1. And we'll take as much time as we need. We'll also want to open up these voicings to, instead of closed position voicings, we'll want to open the positions up to stuff, voicings like the root, the 3, the 5, and the 3, and then which incorporate skipped strings. And then the 3, the root, and the 5, if I can find the right strings here today. And then up to the 5, the 3, 5, the 3 root 5, and then the 5, 3, and then the root on the top. And that leads us back to the octave above the place from whence we came. So we have the root 5, and 3, and then we arpeggiate it, and then we play that together. 3 root 5. And then we have the 5, 3, and root. And what we're trying to do is understand the intervals that we're playing. A major 6, and then with a minor 6 on the top. A perfect 5th with a major 6 on the top. A minor 6 with a perfect 5th on the top. And so on and so forth. We should really do this for minor as well. So we'll start with root flat 3, 5. And then flat 3, 5, root. And then 5, root. And then flat 3. And then we go back up to the octave above where we came from. So we also want to do that same kind of root 5, 3 voicing. And then flat 3, and then root, and then 5, and then 5, flat 3, and then root on top of that. Okay? The next step is dominant 7th chord. It definitely sounds more like the major chord than the minor, but there is that flat 7th, which changes it slightly. Practice as before, now comparing the 3 different sounds. The next step is to practice also the major 7 and minor 7 chords again, comparing differences with other chords. And notice how closely related the major and major 7th chords are, the minor and minor 7th chords are. Also notice that the minor 7 is the same as the major 6, whose root is 3 frets higher than the root of this minor 7 chord, like A minor 7 equals C6. Now you should have encountered this type of relationship in the section containing chord synonyms. Let's talk about that quickly now. Now I wanted to take a quick look at the dominant 7 chord. There's a way to play this sort of like pianistic voicing, right? So that's with a flat 7, and that's 1, 3, 5, flat 7. What we're going to do is 1, 3, flat 7, 1, 5, flat 7, 3. We're going to just change this around a little bit to give it a root position on root 6. Now I'm going to just maybe take a look at inverting that down to flat 7 in the bass. Let's do this. Yeah, let's do 1, 5, flat 7, 3, and then let's go through all of the inversions right here on this string grouping 1, 2, 3, 4 string groups, right? It's the 4 string group or contiguous strings, and Van Epps would have us say that we're on string grouping number 3. And then we have this one, next one is 5, root, 3, flat 7, right? And then we have the 3 in the bass, the flat 7, and then the root, and then the 5 on the top. I would go through and programmatically play each chord arpeggiated so that we can start building an understanding of the intervals between each note. I'm obviously not going to speak while I practice these things, but I'm going to play these until I'm confident my ear can hear exactly what's going on between each and every single interval in each one of these chords that I'm practicing. I know, it's just a tremendous amount of work, but that's what we really need to be doing if we want to become the guitar practitioners of our dreams, right? The 3, the flat 7, the root, and then the 5. All right, you see where this is going, right? Let's take another look at some of the the major 7 chords, the major 7, and how it's basically an extension of the root 1, 3, 5, the major triad. That's just got a major 7 on the top, which is basically this now. So we're anywhere we had the root 3, or the root and the 5 and the 3, now we're just adding the major 7. Now you can make the major 7 appear anywhere you would like. You know, you could even put it down, place it down here if you'd like, you know. That means a root goes up here. You know, it's a little different. But here's a nice representation of the major 7 chord on the guitar. The major quality chord is the same, but minor, minus the, minus the major 7 chord tone, right? Here's the minor triad. Now, the minor 7 incorporates the flat 7. So here it is with the root, the flat 3, the 5, and the flat 7 on the top. And then here it is in a guitaristic representation. And then the same thing could be said about the minor triad, which is absent the flatted 7th, right? Completely changes, just softens the sonority a little bit, extends the sonority a bit. But I would practice all of those arpeggiations of, let's take a look at what happens when we play the flat 7, the flat 3, the 5, and the root. And then the 5, the root, and then the flat 3 and the flat 7 on the top. So we're arpeggiating and inverting all of these minor 7 arpeggios, our chords. Right, this is only the beginning. I also wanted you to notice that the minor 7 is the same as the major 6, whose root is 3 frets higher. So if I'm playing like A minor 7, I have a number 1, an A minor 7, which is the root, the 5, flat 7, and flat 3. But if I use the root note up here on C, it's also C. This is a 6, 6. Here's the root note with the 6, the 3, the 5, and the root note. So now a good exercise might be to play a C major chord, and then a C6 chord, and then an A minor chord, and then an A minor 7 chord. Do this with many inversions, not just 1 or 2 of each. If you do not, you will probably not get a broad enough perspective on the different kinds of sounds that each different inversion can make. So I'm going to take the C major chord and then play it as a C6 chord. And then an A minor chord as an A minor 7 chord. Because I hear a lot of pluralities between the two chord qualities. Right? So those are things that we definitely want to be inspecting and researching. Now you can practice playing different inversions of the diminished and augmented chords, and you'll probably learn these, chords fairly rapidly because of their unusual sound. So we'll start with, for lack of a better place, we'll start with the C diminished 7, which is the root, the 5. We'll just start with root, the flat 3, flat 5, and then the double flatted 7. So I'll play it like this. I'll start with the root, the 3, the flat 3, the flat 5, and the double flatted 7, right? So in order to get that sort of framed as a good guitar grip, I'm just going to use the old faithful, which is C, flat 5, double flat 7, and then the flatted 3. And then a nice inversion of this would be up 3 frets, and up another 3 frets, and up another 3 frets. For example, I have a C, or the root, the sharp, or the flat 5, because it's diminished, right? The double flat 7, the flat 3, and then I'm moving up to the flat 3, the double flat 7, the root, and then the flat 5, and then up 3 frets, I'm on the flat 5, the root, the flat 3, and the double flat 7, and then on the double flat 7, another 3 frets higher, the flat 3, the flat 5, and the root note. So those are really, really quick to learn. But that's just one of the shapes. And then here's another sort of like augmented triad that we could kind of work on. So every 4 frets, that repeats itself. So for example, root 3, sharp 5, and then root, and then 3, sharp 5, root, and then 3, and then sharp 5, root, 3, sharp 5, and then back to the place from whence we came. If you have pretty well learned the different sounds of the chords so far, you could now start trying to hear the sounds of any other chords you like. There are many unusual colors and flavors of chords listed in this book, and each has its own sound. So refer to the page on synonyms as an aid to hearing certain chords in more than one way. And realize that every chord except for the diminished, augmented, and some chords without thirds can be thought of as either major, minor, or dominant. When you hear a chord, you should immediately classify it as one of the 3 categories if possible. Some chords, due to the synonyms, will sound like more than one category, so try to hear all of these chords in all possible ways. And the next step is hearing chord progressions. This comes mainly with experience and being familiar with many different kinds of chord progressions. Now, the most useful tool here is to listen to and learn how to play many different songs. This greatly develops your ear, and if you start analyzing and comparing the chord progressions in these songs, you will notice patterns that are used over and over again. And soon you'll be able to hear these patterns in songs that you're hearing for the first time, and you'll recognize them sort of instantly. By songs, it is meant anything that has chords or implied chords. This includes classical music. There is a wealth of knowledge in this music. And as in all forms of music, there is good and not so good. Just investigate. The term implied chords was just used. Now, this happens when there are 2 melodies or voices together, but no chords. As for example, in the 2-part Inventions of Johann Sebastian Bach, the melodies or the 2 melodies seem to suggest a chord. Listening to these inventions should point this out. Now, to sum up this action, experience is the best teacher, but a thorough study and mental categorization of sounds is essential to understanding and hearing chords and chord progressions. So thanks again for watching. I'm Jason, and we're walking together through Ted Greene's Chord Chemistry. And if you don't yet have the book, you can grab it right here in the link in the card above or a link in the description. And until we meet again, I wish you happy picking. But don't forget to watch this video here. All right.